The brand new Volkswagen Golf Mark 8 R launches here in Australia next month in April 2022. But I'm with one a little bit early today to give you a full walk around of the vehicle and a bit of a talk about the mechanical aspects of the new Mark 8 Golf R, which is central to this vehicle's higher positioning because it is more expensive than before. At $65,990 for the hatch and $68,990 for the Golf R wagon, this vehicle is a big step up from what a Mark 7.5 Golf R would cost you, even a full fat one, let alone the sub 50 grand Golf R grid that I remember driving a few years ago. I'll give you a full rundown of the mechanical changes to the vehicle, which are quite significant. It's more powerful, it's torquier, and the all-drive system is new and should make this vehicle significantly more dynamic and drifty on road and track. I'll also show you the interior, which is pretty comprehensively changed from the Mark 7.5. You might like it or not, and you can always let me know down below in the comments. We'll have a look at the back seat and the boot as well, and then I'll give you my first static impressions. But you'll want to subscribe down below because we're going to have the first road test of the 2022 Golf R in a matter of weeks on Chasing Cars. We'll jump inside the Mark 8 Golf R in just a minute to check out the interior of this hot hatch, but much turns on the mechanical package of the R in order to set it apart from not only the Golf GTI, which we've already tested extensively on Chasing Cars, but also the Audi S3, which historically has been sort of like the partner or cousin of the Golf R in the Volkswagen Group lineup. That's no longer the case for a variety of reasons, and it starts right here in the EA888 2-litre turbocharged petrol 4-cylinder engine beneath the bonnet of the Golf R, because the Volkswagen is now the senior partner in the relationship with more power. We've got 235 kilowatts of power from this engine, which is the global power output for the Golf R. That in itself is an exciting achievement because Australia has long had watered down versions of the R because of our extreme hot climate designation within the Volkswagen Group. That climate designation has now been downgraded to medium hot, medium spice, and as such, power has been able to be turned up from 213 kilowatts in the Mark 7.5 Golf R to 235 kilowatts in the Mark 8, which is a fairly sizable jump when you consider that the vehicle uses an adapted version of the same MQB platform as the previous car, so weight isn't all that different. Torque is 400 Newton meters for the hatch and 420 Newton meters for the wagon. The reason for that is that there are slightly different versions of the same engine that are used between the two different body styles. The hatch runs without a petrol particulate filter, whereas the wagon is only built globally with a petrol particulate filter. And for whatever reason, the EA888's development with the PPF gets an extra 20 Newton meters of torque. So the wagon is a little bit stronger, but of course it's bigger and heavier. So we expect the Golf R hatch to still have the advantage in terms of straight line speed at the very least. The only transmission now available is a 7-speed wet clutch DSG automatic. The previous Golf R, even in Mark 7.5 form, could be had for a time with a 6-speed manual, but that option has long been gone for Australia since I think late 2018. It's now mid 2022, but in some markets, including the US, you can still get a Mark 8 Golf R with a manual, which would be particularly sweet. But it's actually the all drive system that lives in harmony with the petrol engine and the DSG automatic that's the big news about the 2022 Golf R. And that's that this car doesn't continue with a progression of the old Haldex all drive system. Instead, it has something more akin to the old Focus RS or Holden Commodore VXR in ZB trim if you're kind of into your niche all drive systems. But effectively on the rear axle, there are twin clutches which open and shut and allow 50% of engine torque to be sent to just one rear wheel at a time. And as a result, the vehicle has drift mode, which should be just fascinating. There's also a Nürburgring mode, which diverts to sending more torque to the rear wheels as well, and you don't have to be drifting to use it, which all sounds great. Additionally, mechanically, the Golf R in Australia has the performance package that's an option overseas. That sees us get stuff like bigger 19-inch wheels, Bridgestone Potenza tyres, a huge rear spoiler, which looks pretty cool on this car as well. Now, much has been made of the fact the Golf 8 has a manual strut underneath the bonnet. If that's a huge issue, the new Audi S3 has a gas strut. Cosmetically, Australian buyers receive pretty much the coolest looking Golf R in the world. That's because the specification level on our vehicle is so high. Volkswagen used to sell cheaper versions of the Golf R, they just weren't as popular as the full fat spec. So here at the front, we have the classic Golf R gloss black front diffuser with sort of like a square pattern through it, quite different to a GTI. We also have matrix LED headlights this time around with adaptive high beam and the ability to sort of selectively block out oncoming vehicles, road signs, some really cool tech. We have a lit grille as well, and you can see the blue detailing specific to the R, and then the R badge. Now we've seen new R lines with the R branding before. R line vehicles get an outline of the R. Full fat R cars have a filled in chrome R badge. So there's a little bit of trivia for you at the front. Now, moving on to other angles of the Golf R, the overall proportions are similar to the 7.5. It's really the detailing that's different. So new wheels, still 19 inches in size. The old car had what was known as Pretoria as the wheel design. This is the Estoril, which is the Golf R's lightweight wheel and part of the performance package that's standard on the vehicle in Australia. Plus a Bridgestone Potenza S005 tyres fitted to this vehicle. Moving further down, another R badge on the flank. And then you can see that Volkswagen have retained the R's heritage matte chrome silver mirror caps, which I really like because most of the detailing on the vehicle is black, almost as if it has a black pack, but then we've got a little pop of silver on the wheels and a pop of silver on the mirrors, plus a return to blue brake calipers for the first time since the Mark V. Moving down the side of the vehicle, this car's finished in lapis or lapis blue, which is now one of just 3 colors available anywhere in the world on the Golf R. There's lapis blue, black, and white. That's it. There used to be red and grey and silver, that's all gone. Moving further down towards the back, Australian cars get this really big rear wing, only on the hatchback. The wagon doesn't actually get that, but that's part of the performance pack. As you can see, I can actually fit my fingers through it, so it is legit. And then we get the highest spec Volkswagen Golf tail light unique to the R. I think it's called IQ Light Premium Plus or something like that, but it's got animated indicators front and rear and some cool lighting elements that should look good at night. And then 4 genuine tailpipes around the back with a sports exhaust, but not the Akrapovic exhaust that you can get in some other markets. Volkswagen Australia just couldn't guarantee ongoing supply, but we do expect them to appear in a future special edition. The rear end of the Golf R is really clean with the central R badge. I think that looks pretty cool. And it opens up mechanically just like last time to reveal a to be confirmed boot space. The previous Golf R had about 341 litres, which was down around 40 litres from the standard Golf due to the packaging of the all-wheel drive system, and that is exactly the same for the Mark 8. The all-wheel drive still takes up a whole bunch of space back here, and you lose the dual-height boot floor, so given the hard points of the car are so similar to the Mark 7.5, I'm expecting the final figure to be around that 340 to 350 litre mark. Either way, it's a Golf. It's quite practical, it's square, and there's also the Golf R wagon if you do need extra load lugging ability. Jumping inside the Golf R now gives me a moment to talk about the specification of the car, because as I mentioned before, Volkswagen have decided to give Australia a real primo spec Golf R, reflecting the fact that the previous Wolfsburg edition of the Mark 7.5R was very, very popular. Australians typically like their Golfs with all of the options ticked rather than a sort of stripped out base model, and that's what we've gotten, with a bit of an asterisk on the premium stereo. Because of the ongoing semiconductor shortage that is afflicting the entire car industry, the Golf R currently doesn't have a standard Harman-Kardon stereo. About 150 cars were ordered before this became a problem. This car that I'm sitting in has Harman-Kardon, for instance, and if you insist on having premium audio, which I fully understand as someone that likes a good stereo myself, you can insist and your car will get built. It's just that production at the moment, if there are 10 Golf Rs ordered by Volkswagen Australia, they'll easily get 7 built without it, and maybe 2 or 3 will be able to have Harman-Kardon. So it's $65,990 for the hatch, add another $1,000 for Harman-Kardon. Same situation with the wagon, $68,990, add $1,000 for Harman-Kardon. Otherwise, everything else you see here is standard, including new Napa leather seats, which are really soft, better than the Vienna leather that you get in the Golf GTI. Driver's seat has power adjustment, 12-way, so 4-way lumbar, really nice. and driver's memory, and the front seats are heated and cooled as standard, which is super important because the leather is dark and we've got a dark headliner. So on a summer's day, this cabin will get a little hot. Ventilated seats is perfect. Also, the leather itself is actually a very dark blue, which is kind of interesting, and then lighter blue highlights up here on the seat and the backrest for the R. Blue stitching in the steering wheel, which was a new design for the Mark 8. Pretty tough and aggressive and meaty sort of steering wheel, flat bottom, and big paddle shifters for the Golf R. They look metal, sadly they're just plastic, but they look cool and you'll easily find them no matter what angle the steering wheel is at. Then we move on to the Innovision cockpit. We've got these two screens in sort of set in gloss black. Still the same system as the GTI, so the sort of touch sensors for the climate control, for the temperature. Not the easiest to use in our experience. We'll see whether the system has had an update or a bump for the R when we get to drive the car soon. And then R-specific graphics in the driver's digital cockpit Pro as well, which is cool. Wireless charging, that remains standard, which is actually new for the Mark 8. The Mark 7 never got that. Little gear shifter down here for the DSG. Storage here, a little shelf, big cup holders, and still an adjustable, height adjustable armrest, which is a really nice feature of the Golf. Flockline door bins, so a lot of the elements of quality are still evident here. The only other option inside is a panoramic sunroof, which is not fitted to this slick top. The back seat of the Mark 8 Golf is much like that of the Mark 7.5. Definitely enough to fit two adults back here. Kids will be fine. The middle seat is a bit of a perch, so think of it as a four-seater and you'll be in the ballpark. Headroom, legroom, tow room, all fine for a 6-footer back here. There are air vents, a little climate control, 2 USB-C ports, and while the materials take a bit of a step back, the seats themselves are comfortable, soft, and plush. So those are my very first impressions of the 2022 Volkswagen Golf R in Mark 8 form. Naturally, a lot is riding on the road test of this vehicle. It's more expensive than before, but it's more powerful, it's torquier, and the new all-wheel drive system should make it even more fun to drive with the ability to send 50% of engine torque to just one rear wheel with drift mode. That all sounds promising. In a static form, I think the Mark 8 Golf easily looks its best in R form. It just sits a little bit lower, it's meaner, and the lapis blue color really works for this car. Design's subjective. You can of course dispute that down in the comments. You're welcome to do so. But also hit subscribe so you catch that road test when we have that on the channel in a matter of weeks to see whether it all comes together on road and on track. And as always, thanks for watching Chasing Cars.